This is Yair Davidiy speaking from the land of Israel. I represent Brit-Am, Hebrew awareness. We believe that lost and tribes are amongst Western nations. That is where the Bible says they will be. That is where we find them according to historical sources, also according to the Bible, as confirmed also by rabbinical sources, by rabbinical references, by history, by archaeology, linguistics, by numerous fields of study. They all show that lost and tribes of Israel are amongst Western nations, especially the countries of Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Switzerland, England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the offshoots of Britain, overseas, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and the USA with Canada. That is where the lost and tribes are to be found according to the Bible. We don't say that everyone in those areas belongs to lost and tribes. So that is where the lost and tribes are. There's a difference. That is where the lost and tribes are. In some cases, they are a good portion of the population. In others, they are a representative of a substantial minority. At all events, they are there, and they have had a historical influence on those countries and determined the national characters of those areas. And this, in turn, has proven that is where the people is concerned, to some degree, descent from Israel. And that is what we are concerned. We are concerned with finding where the lost tribes are and proving it. And everything else, every other consideration is subsidiary as far as we're concerned. Our task is to find where the lost tribes are, to prove it, and to bring this proof to the attention of as many people as possible. And the world has a duty to wake up to this. The people's concerned have a duty as an obligation to be aware of they are. And the Bible tells us this, and the Bible tells us about this, and the Bible brings proofs of it. And the Bible tells us what they should do and what is to happen to them in the future, and we have to tell them concerning this. So one of the major sources, one of the major chapters concerning this, concerning the future lost and tribes, is Isaiah chapter 11. This is a central chapter in the book of Isaiah. Just to remind you, the book of Isaiah was written by the prophet Isaiah the son of Amos, Isaiah son of Amos. Therefore, Isaiah was the nephew of the reigning king of Judah, and he was from the royal family, the family of King David. Isaiah lived for 120 years according to tradition. He was of the house of David, and eventually he was killed by King Manasseh, who was probably his nephew. Isaiah is an important prophet. He is possibly the most important prophet in the Hebrew Bible. The important commentator, Rabbi Isaac Abarbanel, says that all of the other prophecies are contained within the book of Isaiah. Now, Isaiah brings a summary, and both a summary and a forward to the other prophecies. So Isaiah is important. He's a central prophet, and in the first chapters of Isaiah, he speaks of becoming desire, of which only 10% of the population of the Israelites will remain. He says that our leaders will have misled us. And Isaiah speaks of Assyria, meaning a tool of retribution. Many identify Assyria with Germany or with Europe in general, the non-Israelite portion of Europe, dominated by Assyria. Sometimes Assyria is conflated with Edom. Assyria and Babylon were one of the same, in some respects, were one of the same entity. Also historically, the kings of Assyria were also considered the kings of Babylon. And within Babylon, there were elements from Edom. They had a whole neighborhood, a whole suburb of Edomites within Babylon. And Babylon in the Bible is often synonymous with Edom and vice versa. So so to some degree, both Edom and Assyria are synonymous, and they are the major arch enemies of the Israelite peoples. Isaiah tells us how the Messiah, son of David, will come, future Messiah. There's only one Messiah, son of David. Other traditions say that the Messiah, son of David, will be assisted. We were assisted by the Messiah, son of Joseph, who will lead the 10 tribes and initiate the reunification of the 10 tribes with the Messiah, son of David. To remind you that 12 tribes of Israel, originally 12 tribes of Israel, these 12 tribes divided into 2 sections. The northern section became the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes were taken away by the Assyrians, exiled, and found their way into Northern Europe, where we have traced them to the areas of the lost 10 tribes. And they lost consciousness of their ancestry, but eventually their ancestry, their antecedents will be made known to them, and in the end times they shall reunite with Judah, and Isaiah chapter 11 speaks of this. The book of Isaiah also speaks of the fall of Babylon, and he speaks of Tyre, which is it speaks of Tyre, which was also a Phoenician, which was a Phoenician entity, also connected with Edom, the kingdom of Edom, and with Assyria. And he speaks of the future resurrection of the dead in the end times. Isaiah flips around from one stage to another, from one period to another. There's a connection between the different areas, the different subjects he talks about, but not necessarily a linear one. It doesn't go according to chronological order. It goes according to a Seder of precedence that Isaiah considers important, considers worth speaking of. Also, Isaiah says that God is the Zionist. In other words, God says the land of Israel belongs to the children of Israel, belongs to the people of Israel, and not to none others. And also, that in the future, the 10 tribes and Judah will combine forces and exile, move the Palestinians, the Arabs in Israel, the Palestinians will be moved out of the land of Israel and will be flown out to some other place in the west. They will not be exterminated, they will not be killed, they will be taken nicely and put on planes and flown elsewhere and resettled, God willing. Isaiah also has historical sections in this book. He speaks about the siege of Jerusalem and how 180,000 Assyrian soldiers were miraculously killed by an angel. And he speaks about other things, and he also gives us signs and wonders and indications as to where the lost 10 tribes will be in the end times. He tells us how they will be at the ends of the earth, how they will be in the isles of the sea, and how they will have become a light to the nations in their historical period. The 10 tribes will have to know who they are. They will have to know who they are, and they will eventually have to acknowledge the Almighty and return with repentance to Him. Meanwhile, they have a duty of their own to fulfill and a task to realize in their places of exile. After that, they will also need to have done justice and good deeds, and eventually they will have to return and accept the commandments like all the rest of the Israelites. Those who oppressed Israel, Israelites and Judah and the Jews will be punished. God will always be with His people when they are not aware of it. And there will be an eventual restoration of Judah and Israel. Those who are bad will be punished, the good will be rewarded. And this is the gist of the whole book of Isaiah. Now we are speaking about chapter 11, concerning chapter 11, which has an important message for us. Isaiah 11:1 says, "There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse in Hebrew Ishai, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." Speaking of the future Messiah, son of David, whose father was Ishai. The son of Messiah, son of David, will come from the tribe of Judah. He will be a Jew, or a descendant from Judah, from the house of David. And it says he will have miraculous, almost superhuman abilities and gifts, but he will be basically a human who will have developed himself, who will have achieved what he has achieved by his own efforts, combined with his initial inborn traits and talents. And it says in Isaiah 11:2, "And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. He shall have spiritual and other powers beyond those of normal human beings." And Isaiah 11:3, "And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see or decide by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. Righteousness shall be the girdle of his waist, and faithfulness the girdle of his loins. The wolf shall dwell with the land, Isaiah 6. The wolf shall dwell with the land, the leopard shall lie down with his kid. And the calf and the lion are fattening together, and little child shall lead them. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb. Some take this literally, that the whole of nature will change. Others see it as a metaphor, meaning that things will be better, no more peace on earth, no more war, no more oppression, no more violence, no more injustice. It says the cow and the bear shall feed together. The cows and bears are carnivorous animals, they eat cows. But in the future they shall feed together, and their young shall lie down together. And the lion shall eat straw like the ox, like the bull. So this is metaphorical. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is what literally will happen, though it might do so. We shall wait and see, live and see, and then this shall be revealed to us. All events will be changing human nature, will be changing matters as we understand them. And it says the sucking child shall play over the hole of the asp, that is a poisonous snake, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den, on the place where a poisonous snake dwells, and nothing will happen to him. 11:9, they shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The knowledge of the Lord, once we know God, once God is before us, once we are aware of his presence and understand him, he makes himself known unto us. It is reciprocal. It is reciprocal. The more we know God, the more God makes himself known to us and looks after us. In that day the root of Jesse shall stand as an ensign, that is a standard, a flag of a point of assembly to the peoples. Him shall the nations seek, all the people shall want to know, learn from him, to come unto him. And his dwellings shall be glorious, the places of his worship shall be exalted. 11:11 it says that day the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant which is left of his people. From Assyria, from Egypt, word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. Depends on the context. Sometimes Mitzrayim can mean Egypt as we know today. Another context it refers to Russia or to some other environ, or to some other environ. Also mentions from Patros, from Ethiopia, the word for translated as Ethiopia is Cush. Cush can also apply to India. It can apply to other areas, including Central Asia, Central Asian republics, of what was once the USSR. And in those areas were ancestors of many of the lost 10 tribes today, the Anglo-Saxons and the peoples from Scandinavia. Their ancestors once dwelt in the areas of Central Asia, and from there they migrated. They migrated to the north and migrated into Scandinavia. They also migrated into northern and western Europe, and from there they moved over to the British Isles. So this could also refer to them. As it says Elam. Elam was an important area. Elam now is in southwest Persia, but the ancestors of Anglo-Saxons were also in that region. And so these areas, the identifications of these areas are not certain to us, are not known to us, but we analyze them and we do researches concerning them. And we have information that may be of importance in the future, that may reveal its significance to us at a future date. Meanwhile, we find ancestors of lost in tribes who had been in those regions, or we find identifications for the regions mentioned, and all adds up, and somehow or other it all comes together. And also speaks of people returning from Shinar. Shinar is usually taken to be the area of Babylon, but it could also mean northern Turkey. In ancient times this name was also applied to northern Turkey. From Hamath, and from the coastlands of the sea, or the islands of the sea, meaning the British Isles. So, and these are the exiles of Judah and Israel, the places spoken of, areas to which the exiles were taken, and in some cases they're still there, and in other cases they moved on. The prophet apparently speaking in his own time, referring to people who were in those areas in his time, and what will happen to their descendants in the future, who meanwhile will have moved to other areas. That is the way of prophecy, that is how the prophecy should be understood. He says in 11:12, he will raise an ensign, that is a standard of assembly. He will raise an ensign for the nations and will assemble the outcasts of Israel. The outcasts of Israel, these are the lost 10 tribes, according to the commentators, outcasts of Israel. Gather dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The outcasts of Israel, the 10 tribes, were cast out. They were cast out, but they remained together physically in groups, in their own groups, and they moved together and stayed physically together. In some cases they split up and migrated along the various pathways, but they recoalesced in the areas of northern and western Europe. And they are together in one group. Where there's the Israelites, that is what happened to them, but the Jews were dispersed, scattered all over the earth, and they too shall return from the four corners of the earth. The dispersed of Judah shall return from the four corners of the earth, the Jews will return. So too the lost 10 tribes will return. And Isaiah 11:13 says, the jealousy of Ephraim shall depart, and those who harass Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not be jealous of Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. In the past, when they were together in the land of Israel, when they neighboured each other in the land of Israel, there were occasions when they worked together, when there was a relative amity between them. The allies together against their enemies. At other times they fought against each other, and they even allied with foreign elements to fight against each other. They were not so peaceful as they should have been. It was a factor of sidle, strife, was one of their marks. And even their places of exile throughout the centuries, the Jews have suffered, have been persecuted all over wherever they've gone. And these nations were not always as friendly to the Jewish people as they should have been. And so the Jews too were not as open to them as perhaps they should have been. We don't know. God Almighty will judge. But all evidence was the historical reality. In the future this will not be so. The hearts of Judah, of the Jewish people, and the hearts of the lost 10 tribes will come together. They will be reconciled one to each other. And we have a duty in our times to reach out to each other, to become reconciled to each other. That doesn't mean that we should turn into each other. The lost 10 tribes will remain separate. All the tribes of Israel will remain separate. Ezekiel speaks about this, how the tribes, when they return, they shall reunite and be under one king, and one God shall rule over them, and they shall have one temple, but nevertheless they shall each dwell in their own territory. They shall remain separate until the end times. So becoming close to each other doesn't mean turning into each other. Doesn't mean the Jews have to become like them, or that they have to become like the Jews. Those who want to, those who feel the pull in that direction, that is their own individual choice, their own individual business. But on the whole, they need to remain separate. This is an important point, and this is a point of prophecy. And it says, envies of Judah, it says the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. See Isaiah 11:13, also Midrashim on these verses that say the same thing, emphasize it. For instance, we have a Midrash Breshet Rabbati, says in the past, Jeroboam, that is the head, the leader, the initial leader, the king of the northern tribes when they separated from Judah. Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, was from Ephraim. He hated King Rehoboam, who was from Judah. There was a controversy between them. In the future, there will be a peace between them. They will not be jealous of each other. And he quotes this verse, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. So too we have another Midrash. Everywhere you find these two tribes, Judah and Joseph, hating each other and antagonistic to each other. But should we say that even from the future, this will be the same, that the future anointed captain of war, that is the Messiah, son of Joseph, book is referred to as the future anointed That is, the word for anointed is the same word as used for Mashiach, for Messiah in Hebrew. A Messiah is someone who's been anointed, has had the oil, holy oil placed on the head, and has been appointed to a certain task. So we have an anointed Messiah, son of Joseph, who will lead the 10 tribes, and he's referred to as a captain of war. He will lead the tribes, and he will defeat the enemies of Judah, and he will initiate the reunification between the 10 tribes and between Judah. And it says here in his Midrash, there shall be no antagonistic between them. And I quote the same verse. The enemy also shall Ephraim, shall partner adversaries, so Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. That is Midrash Agadah Beit Reshit. And we also have other Midrashim saying the same thing, giving the same message. This is repeated, and this is very important. And also says, 11:14, they shall sweep down upon the shoulder of the Philistines in the west. Together they shall plunder the people of the east. They shall put forth their hand against Edom and Moab, and Ammonites shall obey them. This verse begins with, according to the English translation, they sweep down upon the shoulder of the Philistines in the west. Actually in Hebrew it says, Avu B'Ketet Plishtim Yama. Literally meaning they shall fly the Philistines away westward. They shall fly the Philistines away to the west. Then they didn't have planes when Isaiah spoke. That's what he says. In other words, he predicted air travel. Elsewhere he says the lost 10 tribes will return by airplanes, like doves to their cot. Isaiah knew what he was talking about. He knew that there would be air travel in his time in the future. That there will be in the future time of the Messiah. And also speaks about them flying the Philistines away. And who are the Philistines? The Philistines are the Palestinians. Where do the Palestinians take their name from? These people are Muslims and Arabs, Arab-speaking people who dwell in the land of Israel, known as Palestinians. They took their name from the name Palestine. And the name Palestine comes from a name that the Romans applied to the area of Judea and northern Israel. Why did they do that? The Romans ruled over the people of Judah, the Jews in the Holy Land. The Jews of the Holy Land rebelled against them. There was a war, and the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the Holy Temple. And then there was another rebellion, and they exiled all of the people within the land, and they decided to erase all remnant of the Jews being in this area. And they renamed the land Palestinia after the Philistines. Philistia, the land of the Philistines in Latin was Palestine. And so we have Palestinian. And the Palestinians called themselves, named themselves, gave themselves this name. In recent times before that, they identified simply as Syrians or as Arabs or Muslims in general. And they're ruled over by the Ottoman Empire, by the Turks. They're part of the Ottoman Empire, and they belong to the people, the Ummah of Islam, the people of Islam. That is what they identified with, or they identified themselves as Southern Syrians. They did not so much identify themselves as Palestinians, but they took this name, adopted this name more only a couple of decades ago, after 1948 more than anything else. But at all events, that is the name they are known by. That is not the name they chose, and that is the name what world identifies them with. And that is the name the Bible therefore gives it to them. The Bible speaks in Hebrew, writes in Hebrew. It gives Hebrew equivalents for names used in our time. So what is a Hebrew equivalent? The nearest Hebrew equivalent for the Palestinian people, Philistines, because that's what they call themselves, and that is what they identified with. So it says the Philistines would be flown away by Judah and Ephraim together, will be flown away to some area in the west, perhaps to North Africa, perhaps to South America. We don't know. We don't really care. But this will be a solution to the present problem in which the Palestinians are trying to destroy the kingdom of Judah, and you renew the kingdom of Judah and the state of Israel. And so this will be the solution that will be found for them. And Isaiah goes on, and he also speaks of the return of the 10 tribes. He says that miracles happen, and that some of the 10 tribes will return by sea, as he mentions elsewhere, and some of them will return by plane. They will be flown back to the land of Israel, and others will come by land. and a portion of the sea will be dried up, possibly the Bosphorus linking, which links Europe and southeast Turkey. And Jerome, who is a Christian translator of the Bible, he translated the Bible into Latin, but he consulted with Hebrew sages, and he repeats the tradition that lost 10 tribes. The Assyrians were taken away to the north, and in the future they will return from that, and he points to the area linking Turkey with Europe as one of the pathways over which the lost 10 tribes will return, according to Hebrew sources. So there might be something in this, may not, but it's a possibility. So we have this. We have at all events, we have this with the identification of the lost 10 tribes of peoples in Northern Europe, Northwest Europe, and the peoples in North America, peoples in Australia and New Zealand, and they should know who they were, and who they are, and they shall come back, they shall return, and this will be accompanied with miracles, and human nature will eventually change, and things will go in a progression. First they will return, first they will deal with the matters according to the laws of nature, and eventually human nature will change. And Isaiah speaks of this, but he does not do so in a consecutive order, he does not do so in a progressive order, beginning from the first to the last, but he throws different things together according to considerations of his own, which have an internal connection that he intended. All we can do is understand the passages as well as we can, because the passages were directed for us to understand them. We have to understand that we belong to the lost 10 tribes, to understand who the lost 10 tribes are, that we have a future, and that Judah also has a future, and we have obligations to do what we have to do. And may the Lord God of Israel bless us and look after us, and if we do this and endeavor to do the best we can, the Almighty will guide us. Thank you. May the God of Israel bless you.